today. And the topic today here, oh, sorry, this is not the topic. We want to go all the way up to, give me a second, one. There we go, web development on your local computer using MAMP and Joomla content management system. That's a long title, isn't it? But I think that probably accurately explains what this is all about. So this is me. And you can find out a lot more about me on the volunteers portal by going to volunteers.joomla.org/joomlers/99joesonne. Now, I really like that 99 there, and the reason for that is I'm from Canada. I'm actually from Toronto. I was born and raised in Toronto. I live near Toronto now, just a little bit west of it. And if you're a Canadian, you're probably a hockey fan. And that 99 there is the number of my all-time favorite hockey player. It was number 99, Wayne Gretzky from the Edmonton Oilers. And I was just delighted when they gave me this URL. So that is absolutely awesome. I'm currently a member of Open Source Training. I'm the secretary of Open Source Training. Open Source Matters, sorry. Open Source Matters, I'm the secretary. That's a position that I was just recently elected into. And I will be handing that position over during the new transition. When the new leadership team comes in, someone else will have that opportunity to serve in that role. So I'm basically just handling that position until we get into that leadership structure, and that gives everybody an opportunity that is involved with the Joomla project to be able to hold a position and serve. So I've been doing Open Source Matters on the board of directors for about 3 years, in 2013, and it's been awesome. I've had a chance to really see the inner workings and get to know all the great people that put all these kinds of things together. It's just been amazing. I've also been part of Joomla, the Joomla Sphere, since 2005. What happened in 2005 is I saw this really cool website that an associate of mine had, and by the way, he is leading the team of the AV. So a gentleman by the name of Brian Pete was the guy that had this really cool website. And I said to Brian, if you were going to build a website like the one you have from scratch all over again, would you do it the same way you did? And he says, no. He says, if I was building my website all over again, I would use Joomla. And I never heard of Joomla. And I said, well, what's Joomla? He says, well, you need to go to joomla.org and sign up in the forum, and you'll find out all about it. Now, this story's going somewhere, and it has to do with MAMP, so bear with me. So not knowing anything about Joomla, I go to the joomla.org forums, and they were running a bulletin board system, which was a Simple Machines bulletin board, Simple Machines forum, and you could, register on the forum, and you didn't have to use your own name. So I thought, this is great, because I don't want to embarrass myself because I didn't know anything. So I typed in username, and the name I typed in was Joe Joomla. And voila, it was available. I was amazed. I thought, oh, that's really easy, because my name is Joe, and this is Joomla, so Joe Joomla. And then I was delighted to find out that you could use a little avatar to represent you. So I go searching around on my computer looking for an avatar, and I see this little cartoon drawing of Clark Kent ripping open his shirt to expose the Superman logo underneath it. I said, okay, that's really cool. I'll put that in there. And bingo, I'm registered in the Joomla forum. And the purpose of going to the forum was I wanted to know how I could learn about Joomla and how to develop Joomla websites, but I didn't want to go and do it on a web server. I want to be able to do it on my computer. So my first question in the forum is, how can I develop a Joomla website just on my Macintosh computer? So that was my first question in the forum, and nobody answered me. I didn't exist because it was my very first post. And there were tens of thousands of people busy talking about Joomla on all these different levels, answering complicated questions and helping each other. And here I am in some little obscure corner of the forum struggling with, how do I get started? I want to build a Joomla website. I don't want to do it in public. I want to do it on my computer. So I had to go out and do my own research. And I went out online. It wasn't Google back then. I think it was Alta Vista. It was the search engine back then or something like that. And I stumbled across a piece of software called MAMP. And so I downloaded this software, and of course I had to learn how to use it. Now, I'm the kind of guy that I need to keep notes. So what I did was I went back into the forum and I answered my own question. So now I had 2 posts. I said, well, you develop Joomla websites on your Macintosh computer using software called MAMP. And then I started to journal my learning process of everything that I was doing with MAMP. And, in the background, I'm learning this, and I would post it into the thread. And then I'd actually on purpose ask another question that was, related to what I was doing, and then I'd go answer that too. So it was like lonely, but I was talking to myself, and it was kind of cool because when I needed to find the information later, I knew where to go. I'd just go to my thread. But something very interesting happened is that someone noticed my question, and they jumped in, and they didn't jump in to help me. They jumped in and asked a totally obscure, off-the-wall question that had nothing to do with what I was talking about, which was developing, using MAMP. And the question was, Joe Joomla, what are you trying to say with your username and your avatar? And I went, someone's talking to me. This is awesome. I've been noticed. So I thought, okay, well, I better say something, back in response that's noble and nice and kind and generous. So I thought about it, and I went, well, I thought that the Superman, reference shows that this very noble shows that, even though you have these superpowers, you're the kind of person that just wants to help other people, and you're not really in this for yourself. Something noble like that, right? For which the icon of Clark Kent, Superman, represent. And all of a sudden, my thread in the forum went viral. And for the next several months, thousands of replies in my thread, and I became a very popular person in the Joomla forum. Still, nobody knew who I was because I kept my identity secret for 2 years. And so the mystery and the intrigue was, who the heck is this Joe Joomla guy? Is he some 14-year-old kid in his mom's basement trying to cause trouble? Or who is he? But that was fun. But those articles that I was writing about MAMP eventually found their way over onto the website of the domain that I set up, which was joejoomla.com. And this was back in around 2005, 2006. And I wrote very detailed articles. There was quite a series of articles. And this wasn't something I planned, but down the road, I found out that if you type in MAMP and Joomla, or Joomla and MAMP, I have a #1 Google ranking. One of my articles in my MAMP series comes up. So the thing is if you want to get a #1 Google ranking, is that you kind of have to write good content, and the fact that a lot of people go to it makes it very relevant, and there's some age, so it ages like a fine wine, you know, and so that article, even though it was written all that time ago, is still actually relevant because MAMP works very much the same way as it did right back in the beginning. Things have changed, things have progressed, and you're gonna, you know, if you go to those articles, you will be able to relate to it, and it explains more things than I'm going to explain here with you today. It will talk to you about how once you have that website on your local machine, how do you push it up to a web server, all that sort of thing. But we're going to talk about a few more basic things today. But before I get right into that, I would like to know where we're all at. So is anybody in this room here, put up your hands if you've never used MAMP before. Awesome, because I'm talking to you for the most part. How many people use MAMP and develop a lot on their computer? Okay, so you may help me a little bit later on if there's some questions, and I know that there was a question related to something that MAMP does that's kind of weird, so we'll try to cover that as well too. So I'm talking to you that never used MAMP before. Let's just see what is MAMP. MAMP is basically an acronym that stands for Macintosh, Apache, MySQL or MySQL, PHP, which, by the way, I'm not a back-end guy per se. I'm a front-end guy, kind of come from the advertising and promotion world, the design world. And when I found out that PHP stands for personal home page, I had a really good giggle because I thought it was some, you know, really technical thing. It's personal home page. But anyways, the Macintosh, which was what everybody called Apple computers, especially, you know, way back when this software was formed, Macintosh, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, these are all resources that are needed for you to be able to, you know, get a content management system like Joomla running. Now, if you go to the MAMP website, you're going to see this explanation, and you can read it. It's very cool, but I'm going to explain it in a little more simpler term for you. It's a way that you can, by downloading software, easily build websites that run, database-driven websites on your Macintosh without being a geek. In the computer, if you use a Macintosh computer, you know, there's web servers and all this stuff built into it, but you have to be very geeky to be able to set it up and use it. This is the simplest way to start working with database-driven websites. On the PC side of things, there's equivalent software to this. I believe it's XAMP, and it's pretty much the same thing. There's other, yes, WAMP as well too. Thank you very much. So that would be Windows, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So, and there's other ones as well too, but I've been working with this one for a very, very long time. So before I get into a whole bunch of other things, let's have a little bit of fun, and let's just start playing around with MAMP. Now, I'm having a little bit of funk here because I can't see my cursor. Let's see if I can. That's actually kind of a cool question that I don't really know the answer to because I never even bothered trying the other one. This one worked for me, and if you're using a Mac, I would go with the MAMP. So unfortunately, remember I said I'm from the advertising. We've always been Macintosh oriented. We've never really been Windows users. Linux was too geeky, you know, for us, the Android systems for real high-level geeks and all that, and this system just makes it really, really easy for us. So I'm sorry I can't really answer that question.
If I could jump in, Joe, I don't think you'd notice any difference, right? Like, if you're using XAMPP and it's working, MAMP isn't going to really do anything different than what your XAMPP is doing right now.
All right, I got to get this over onto this side so you can see what I'm doing here. And all right, so this is just a Finder-based thing here. So what we're going to do is I have this install on my computer. I've already installed MAMP. We're going to talk about how you do that a little bit later. And you can see here, there's the application. It's inside my application folder, and it's in a specific folder inside MAMP. We'll talk about that a little later. And I have this Joomla install in here. I'm actually going to wipe this out, get rid of all of that, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to put something in there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in backup from, let's see if I'm going the right, yep, right way. So this is a JPA file, which is an Akiba backup file, and it is from a website that, you know, is a base install that I did a little bit of stuff on it. And in order for that file to work, we need another little file called Kickstart File, and we're going to put it in there. All right, so now I have this empty directory. I put a backup file in there and a Kickstart file in there. And now I am going to start MAMP. And there's MAMP right there. So this is MAMP starting up. And it'll take a second. You can see it's going to start a server. And over on my screen, which I'll move in there in a second, is a startup page. But let's just take a quick look at this. This is actually I'll call it the dashboard for the system. You can see that we have two little green dots up here that say an Apache server is running and a MySQL or MySQL server is running for the database. And you could start and stop servers with this button over here. We have a preference button here that the most that I go in here for usually is to go over to this little tab here, and you'll notice that you can select two different versions of PHP. So this one here, 7.0.12, is a pretty recent version of PHP, and some of the older websites are not, you know, able to run PHP 7, and you have to push it back here. But today we're using, you know, fairly, we're going to be playing with a Joomla 3.6.4 site. We can use PHP 7. So that's the interface for the server. You'll notice something called MAMP Pro. When you download MAMP, you get the opportunity of using MAMP or using MAMP Pro. I've never used MAMP Pro, so it's not something that you need. It's something that you can grab later on if you want, but we're not going to go down that path today. So here we have, let's push this over into the window. This is the landing page, I'll call it, for when you start up MAMP. It starts this page up for you, and you have a bunch of different tabs here. Now, one of the things that I'll share with you later, if you like, is I have a little file inside the MyMap directory that will look at all the installations that you have and put them into nice little columns. There's a third column that you're not seeing here that is older sites or just different kinds of sites, but it will put Joomla 2.5 into a column. It'll put Joomla 3 sites into a column, and the other column just, you know, miscellaneous, anything that's not Joomla 2 or Joomla 3. Somebody gave me this file. It doesn't come with MAMP, but if you want it afterwards, I'll give you my business card and I'll send that to you because it's kind of handy. So you're not seeing it. And let me see if I close this up here. Okay, so we put in this folder in MAMP called base install. And let's go back again. Whoops. Sorry, I guess I have the resolution on my screen a little bit too low, so I'm not seeing my thing here. There we go. Back. Come back. Come back. There we go. And then just move it over so we could see what's going on. Good heavens. I'm not sure why that's happening. I'm trying to drag my... There we go. Okay, sorry about that. So we have this... we have a directory. We've got a couple of files in it. We have give me a Kickstart PHP file, and we have this JPA file, which is the Akiba backup. And so we're going to click on this give me a Kickstart. And we're going to close that up. And then we wind up with a page. I wonder if I could change my resolution to make it smaller. Maybe not. Command and what?
Dash. Top right is negative.
Yeah, come on up here. All right. Well, let's try that. Oh, I see. You're just making the page smaller then.
Trying to, yeah.
Okay. Good enough. All right. Okay. So to try to get you, so this page comes up and it selects the backup file because it's the only one in the folder, and we can start the installation. And Akiba Kickstart Professional, what it's just done there now, it has installed all these just different files into what was that empty directory there, and we're ready to run this installer. So we go ahead and run the installer. And there's a whole bunch of checks that it does. And I have all these checks marked as green. We won't worry too much about that right now. We'll just go ahead to the next screen. And the next screen deals with linking up a database to this particular install. I've already done this a few times, so I've got this all pre-filled in here what the database username, password is there. And so we're just going to go ahead and go next. And it's now going to restore, it's going to connect the database to this particular install. That was nice and fast. And we'll click next. And then we have a couple of more little admin things we want to do. Get the name of the site, email address. We'll just go ahead and I'm going to make that one click there and click next. And this page here says we're almost there. All we have to do is close up this window. This cleanup removes the installation directory that was inside the install. You don't want to leave that, especially on a web server on your local machine. It's okay. And then we can go ahead and we can visit our site's front end. And we could also go visit our site's back end. So here we are, is that we have a fully functional Joomla website right here. The question is, so why do you want to do all these things on your local computer? You want to do this because this is an easy way for you to start doing some modifications very quickly. So, for example, if I wanted to play around with that image and change it really, really quickly, I could go into the Joomla backend and go into the appropriate module, pick in the, in the admin. But since it's local and I have access to every single file and directory, I can go, did a right click there, and I basically said open up this image in a new tab, and I can see here the path to that image. So that image exists in my directory of base install. It's in a directory called images and headers, and I've named this image same name. So what I'm about to do is I want to see what a different image looks like on the front of that page, and I'm going to go into the directory right here, and it was in images, so open up images. It was in headers, open up headers, and there's the image right there, same name. Whoops, actually, give me a second here. I'm going to do a refresh. That was sitting in my cache. Sorry about that. We'll do a refresh. That was the install. Bear with me. So the right click brings up this image here, and I want to see what a different image looks like. I'm going to keep it the same name. So there's that image that's on the web install. I'll just change that name to now make it so that it no longer shows up. And I'll pick another image and give it the exact same name as what's installed in the website. And then when I go back over here, I'll just refresh that page, and I can very quickly see what a different image looks like. One more quick example. Let's say I want to make a change on the background of that move this in here. The background of that button right there, you can see where it's the inspector says there's the image there, and on the side over here, here's the background. Let's see if I can see both of these at this. Well, I'll just change this and then we'll hide it. So there's that button background, and I can just do something. Come with me and change. Thank you. And there I've changed the button to red. I could type in blue, green, yellow, and it makes all those changes. So I can make very, very fast changes on my local computer. I can go and change menu items. I can go change whatever I want on the website. And this is the beginning of your journey building websites locally on your computer, and then later on you start to collaborate with other people. There's software that will allow multiple people to work on the same website, and they're all people working locally on their local computer, and they'll have a main repository of a master file of a website on a service like GitHub. Has anybody ever heard of GitHub? Okay, so GitHub is a place where a whole bunch of people can collaborate on the same website. So one person is solving problems on a site, another person's doing design and all that sort of thing, and they can all work locally. What they do is they download a master install onto their local computer, and using software like MAMP, they'll go ahead and they will be able to do these changes. And then when they've done the changes that they want, they can push that up to the project as a commit, and there may be a person that is the head of the project that will take a look at that, test it out, make sure they like what you did, and then they can implement that change, push it into the master, and it now becomes the part of the master files inside the installation. Another person can come in and download that master onto their local machine, and they've got the changes that everybody has made, and everything is up there ready for them to work with. So this is working with MAMP. The point is that you're downloading the installation called MAMP. And this is where you get MAMP from. That's the URL, and you will go to www.mamp.info, and you will be able to download it. It's a very large disk image file. It's very large, hundreds of megabytes in size. And what's really lovely about it is the people who do this software have done a fantastic job, because MAMP gets updated from time to time. And here you are, you've got, you know, all your websites and everything inside a folder. And when you update MAMP, the people who put this together, what they do is they rename your previous MAMP installation. They don't get rid of it and delete it. They rename it, and then they move all your Joomla websites into the new MAMP installation. So it's really great, and you know, you don't lose anything that way. It's very, very cool. Now, you get MAMP from this URL, but what if you want to get a Joomla install package so you can get started? Where you need to go is you need to go here at joomla.org, and at joomla.org there's a button right up here in the header, and you can click that Get Started Download button. And when you do that, it will take you to a page where you can download a full install of the most recent version of Joomla, or you can get update packages. So if you're going from, you know, an earlier version to the latest version, you could get a smaller package. So you've got MAMP, you've downloaded it to your computer, and it installs MAMP, the full application, inside your applications folder. And this is what the folder looks like for MAMP. Then inside that MAMP folder, you know, I looked at this when I first installed MAMP for the very first time, and I'm going, oh dear, what's going on now? What? Like I didn't know what to do. But what I discovered is that this is the folder right here that you then will put all your Joomla install folders in. So inside MAMP is a directory called DB. It stands for database. So all your database files go in there. You really don't have to muss or fuss with them, but your Joomla installs and backup files to restore projects all go in the htdocs folder. The other piece, when I was such a newbie, just learning, that really threw me off was that I needed to make a database. And a database was a whole new concept to me. Joomla is a content management website system that uses PHP scripts and database. Database, your pages are being built on the fly. So, you know, when you click a menu button, it's not like it loads an HTML page that's just sitting there. No, it actually creates that page on the fly based on parameter settings that are associated with that menu item. So we needed to make a database. And the way to think about a database, and this is a concept that I had to get used to, is that a database needs to have a username and a password, and all three of them have to work together. Think of it this way. You are familiar with the concept of owning an automobile or the concept of owning a house, right? So let's say the automobile or a house is owned by somebody. So let's say I have a car and I'm the owner of the car. So the car represents the database and the username represents the owner. But I'm not getting inside that car unless I have a key. And I can go to the door and handle if that car is locked. And when you install databases, they are locked. You have to have a user with a password to be able to access the database. So the key for my car represents the password. Or I have a house, that's the database. I'm the owner, I'm the user, and I have a key to open the front door, that's the password. And those are that's a very simple concept that you need to get your head around. Now, in MAMP and in MAMP only, instead of always making separate usernames and separate passwords, and giving that password and user permission to use that database on every single web install that you do, you can use the name username as root and the password name as root. And you of course have to have a unique database name. Caveat: never. Everybody say never. Never. Never use root for a username or a password on a web server. This is strictly a convenience that you give to yourself in MAMP. So I have all these websites. When I make a database in MAMP and I give permission to it, let's just do it, okay? Instead of talk, let's go ahead and do this. So we're going to go to here. Here is the MAMP landing page, and you'll notice that there is a menu item called Tools. And this tool right here called PHP MyAdmin, which is on that, this page comes up when you start up MAMP, takes you to a page that will allow you to create a new database. You can see I got tons of databases inside my install here. I got like all kinds of installs and so all kinds of databases. And to create a database, you could do it two ways. One way is to go to this little database tab and give the database a name. So let's say I just call this new database. And it's going to want to know this thing called collation, which I had no idea what it meant in the beginning, so I just ignored it and I hit create, and it created a database and it worked for me. What I discovered afterwards is that this collation called UTF-8 general is really the one that you want to use if you're concerned about the character sets that are available with your website. So I do a lot of multilingual sites, and this is the collation I want. I'm not going to bother looking for it because watch this. There's a million, and I'd have to go searching for it, and it's in the list. But you could create the database. Oh, the database already exists. Okay, well that's cool. Let's get rid of it. So I have a database in here called new. Where are you? There it is, right there. New database. And you notice I just checked it off. I'm going to go all the way down to the bottom. Let's just make sure it's the only one checked. And with the selected database, which I just selected there, I'm going to nuke it. I'm going to drop it. And it's going to get rid of it. So it's gone. So now I could actually create that database. I clicked it, it created the database. It's empty. There's no data in it. It's just there. It becomes the database name. There's another way of doing the exact same thing, which I do, and I would encourage you to do this, because this is taking you on your way to becoming a full-fledged geek. It's nice to be a geek. So let me just show you a different way of creating that database. I'm going to get rid of new database again, because we're going to create the same one. Drop it. And so instead of doing it that way, where we do click and then create the collation, we're going to go to this next tab. That's the SQL tab. And you start typing. So I'm going to start typing, and it autofills. And yes, I want to create space. Oh, look at that. Create database. And we'll just call it new database, and hit the go button, and it does it. Now, if we go back over here, and we go down to new database, where are you? There it is, new database. Look at that. It created a UTF-8 underscore. It created the database in the actual collation that I wanted. Is that the right way to pronounce it? Is it collation? Okay, collation. I needed to check with a real geek, but it's called collation. Now, we don't have a lot of time to do a lot of other things, because down to 1 minute. But I am available for you to ask questions and talk to and all that sort of thing later on, or you can go to the Joomla website and look up, just type in MAMP, or even don't even go to the website, just type in Joomla and MAMP in a Google search, and my article will come up #1, and you just click on it and go there. I have a favor to ask you. I'm out of time, but I've done this for the last 3 years at all the big events that I've gone to. I've given you something today, and I want to give you an opportunity to have a voice. And the question is, if you had total authority over the Joomla project, what is the one thing that you would change? And if you think about it, you're a dictator, you can do whatever you want, you get to say this has to change, and you get to say what that is. If you go to this URL here, just jojoomla.com/change Joomla, you will not only get a chance to state what you'd like to see change. For the last 3 years, you will see people that have been to Joomla World conferences and J and beyonds that have posted what they would like to see changed about Joomla. And what's fascinating about it is that they go back 3 years, and you can see, have any of these things been implemented? Or these are really good ideas. These are from user points of views and developer points of views. And if you go and you give me your, what would you change about Joomla? I have to approve it. I don't just allow anybody to post. It's a discuss form, and it'll come up in a comment. I need to approve it, so it might be a day or two before I do that. But I would love to hear your great idea, because I guarantee you someone's going to come up with the idea that's going to, all the developers or whatever are going to go, wow, that's so cool, we should really do that. And that might be you. You don't necessarily need to know how to do that. But please go ahead and do that. One last thing I want to address. I believe you had a question earlier.
I followed along your steps and still having exactly the same problem. So we don't have to do it this minute, but it's ready to show you do its thing. I want to let you.
Right. So the question was, you clicked on, you know, the file, and instead of it launching the site, right?
So I went through all the steps here, and you get to the last step, and you go to open the website.
Right.
Instead of opening, it throws a little file into my downloads folder. The website's not open.
Exactly. That's happened to me a few times, and it's very, very frustrating when that happens. So when that happens, I think it's one of 3 things that I have done that has clear, and it's only happened infrequently. One of them, that you should probably check the PHP version in the MAMP dashboard to make sure that you're not trying to run an older website on PHP 7, because it won't go. So when you click on, you know, you're actually clicking at the index.php file, doesn't know how to deal with it. Yeah, you want to make sure that that's one thing you could check. Sometimes when you say roll it back to 5.4 or whatever, and it still does that, what I found that will clear it up a lot of times is a reinstall of your Akiba backup file, because something's gone wrong, and it's a script that's being triggered, but it's not doing what it's supposed to do. So it might be a corrupt file, it might be something like that. So I'll either reinstall the files that I started out with. That clears it up a lot of times. And one of the developers' very best tools ever is a restart. So sometimes restarting MAMP will possibly clear it up. Sometimes you restart your computer and it clears it up. My wife thinks I'm brilliant because I solved more than 80% of her computer problems by restarting her computer. And she goes, thank you, you're brilliant. And I go, I know. Anyways, do we have time for any questions? Because my little timer went off? Okay. It says end of show, but sure.
One quick question on the website. You mentioned you need to log in as one of the 4 options of Discuss, Facebook, Twitter, and Google. Is there a LinkedIn option that you are planning to have, as somebody can log in as LinkedIn? So
Me?
so this
Oh, okay. Disk. That is because you're in a Discus. It's a Discus commenting system. So I guess it just wants to. I don't know if you can't do it as a guest, can you? Yeah, log in any of those things or sign up for Discus, and it's actually a really cool commenting system. You'll love it. I love it. Use one of those. I don't have like a fake or generic one that you can use. They want to make sure that the right, like real people are commenting and not bots. Anything else?
Yeah, I didn't quite follow your process. So did you download an active site using Akiba backup?
No, you know what I did, and I didn't have time for it today, but where it all started is I installed MAMP, and then I actually went and got a copy of Joomla. That base install that you saw, that was just a base install of Joomla, and I modified it to change the name of that image that was on the home page, so I could show you that little example. I installed Akiba backup in the back end of the Joomla install, and then I backed that. Yeah, I did that. And so I went into the administrator. So you go to whatever base install /administrator, you log in, and then you install Akiba backup. I made a backup. That was the JPA file that I used.
When you use Akiba backup, does it back up your files and your database?
Yeah, it does everything.
And Kickstart is the one that
So Kickstart is the thing that triggers. What it does is it triggers the resources to expand that JPA. JPA is just a compression. You can also save them as zip files if you want, right? So it just expands the files, and JPA just makes it smaller, I believe.
one of the things that I really enjoyed using were Kickstart programs from the template providers.
Yes.
And you can actually load a Kickstart into MAMP as if it were a new Joomla.
Yes.
With all the modules and components already installed. So that's a neat way to look at if you're developing one. So look way of how did they do it, and then you can sort of follow that pattern.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much for coming. I really appreciate it.